Hello, my dear fellow programmers. Nothing can beat the happiness of a piece of your code running and serving the user. I myself, being a programmer, can appreciate the journey and experiences you all undergo. It's a marathon. There are tons of new experiences and the skills to learn and test out and adjust to. However, you still keep at it. So the product you tirelessly build goes out to make people's lives easier. Though we don't recognize your faces, we recognize your effort, we recognize your talent, and we recognize your innovative mind. To all the creators out there, on behalf of the entire Zoho Creator team, I wish you all a happy Programmers Day.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who has joined. We are able to see a lot of comments on LinkedIn. Hi to each one of you. We are seeing 100 plus highs already. Thank you for taking your time and joining the session. We'll get started as a means of quickly testing the audio also. Why don't we start with an introduction? I will do the audacious thing of asking my CEO, Sridhar, can you introduce yourself? And when did you last type a line of code?
This morning. So, hello, this is Sridhar Vembu. I'm the CEO of Zoho. His question was, I think, rhetorical. He thought that I never typed the last line of code, which in some respect true, but some respect false, because I think he forgot that I've been working on a language which I had to write code to check. So that I typed this morning. So anyway, welcome to all. So let's have some fun.
Thank you, Sridhar. I knew the answer.
Thank you.
We'll move to Shailesh. Shailesh, please introduce yourself. And what has been your pet project in Zoho in the recent times?
Okay. Hello, I'm Shailesh Davey. I head the engineering at Zoho. Like my favorite line is I focus on 3Ds. 3Ds are data, database, and data centers. And before you ask the question, I wrote my last line of code on Friday evening. Yesterday was a busy day, so I couldn't.
Thank you, Shailesh. So sweet of you. Hyther, your turn, please. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Hyther Nizam, and I head the low-code division Zoho Creator at Zoho. And to answer Bharat's question, I couldn't beat Sridhar here. So I just did my last coding, not in any high-level language, but on Zoho Creator, helping a non-profit. Had some issues over the weekend, so I just did some code plumbing out there. So yeah, that's my last code editing this weekend.
Got it. Thank you so much, Hyther. Hyther, we will take off from there from your answer itself. You mentioned about Zoho Creator. Can you introduce Zoho Creator to us? Is it a support for developers? Is it a threat for developers? Can you enlighten us, please?
Yeah, Zoho Creator is a low-code platform. The whole low-code terminology got familiar in last few years, 3-4 years. But way back, 15 years back, we started this product. At that point in time, it may not be called as low-code. I know that Sridhar introduced the whole paradigm of long tail of application way back in 2005. And that's when we realized that some of the internal tools we have been using in Zoho was really empowering non-programmers to build some meaningful applications, for day-to-day use. And then we thought, like, what about taking that tools for our customers, so that you enable a non-programmer, not so professional developers, to build some meaningful application and solve the real-time problems. That's how Zoho Creator was born. And I don't see it as a threat to any professional developers. In fact, professional developers are embracing the low code for majority of their work, because for heavy lifting work where they want to do very detailed coding, they pick up very high level languages, but otherwise they fall back to low code platform to build quickly and rapidly develop some applications, because IT teams are really constrained with a lot of requirements. And that's when professional developers choose low code development platforms like Zoho Creator to accelerate the development. So I see that it complements really with professional developers, and it's a boon for what you call as the power developers or not programmers to develop meaningful applications.
Thank you, Hyther. Very nicely put. Sridhar, I'll take that question from there to you in two parts, Sridhar. One, why did you invest in a platform like this 15 years back? And second, at a larger perspective, how do you decide about which market to enter, what category, what application to build? How does Zoho approach that?
So in way back in 2004, 5, I've always been interested in what you would call the plumbing or the framework or the behind the scenes of application development. So all the things that go on how you create the software that we all use, and naturally that when we have built frameworks. In fact, Zoho famously we invest in our own frameworks, our own data centers, even our own database, custom databases, all of that. As part of it, this whole idea of how do you empower developers and citizen developers, that is people who are not quite developers but who are tasked with doing something for their business, could be like Hyther said, could be for a non-profit, could be in their personal life. We all need to create something that custom that put together for our even weekend sports club kind of thing. you know could be as something as contextual as that, or organize a meetup, those kinds of things. And we need to create these contextual applications, or often it went by the name situated software, or all of this, the long tail of applications. These are not really the ones that like a major accounting software or CRM, that type of thing, but it really augments, adds value in a particular specific use case or need. And how do you build those? And I always, for a long time, I believed that we could do these much more productively than the current platforms were doing. We can unleash a lot more productivity in this. That was the genesis of Zoho Creator as a platform, and this started with a framework that we built in 2003, 4, and then that framework evolved into the whole Zoho Creator product, which evolved to a platform. Which is the unique thing where we combine no code and low code in a very seamless way. Because absolute no code can get you very far today. But still, there may be like this 5% very critical case where you need to do a little bit of code, and that's where it really shines. And so, this very intelligent meshing of no code with just the amount of code you need, and that's very easy to do with our deluge scripts, and that's what we have blended together. That's what makes Zoho Creator so unique, and we are very happy that how it has turned out in the last C5 edition, and now it has evolved so much in the last 15 years. And that also is the sheer R&D investment we have made in this over the last 15 years with hundreds of developers working on this platform. So,
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Sridhar, a follow-up question there is, how do you decide what application to build or what segment to enter as an organization?
yeah. So we primarily we look at Zoho, the mandate. It originally came from, of course, the small office, home office, to now it has evolved to be a really a vast enterprise software suite, but really solve the problems of business end to end. So the operating system for business. That is our mission here. So all of the areas of business that need to be automated, that need software solution, that is in our remit. That's how we see it. It's very expansive that way. But what we are also doing is look for adjacencies. When we are doing, for example, email naturally brings up instant messaging, chat, and that then naturally brings up audio, video, like that. So it expands the gamut that way. And in a similar way, if you look at our Zoho Creator, that naturally also blends with analytics. Because once you have your apps, that custom apps that you build for your business, then the data accumulates and you need to bring analytics reporting on it. And so there are Zoho Analytics Centers. So there is a lot of such adjacencies that we constantly expand. In the same way, if you look at our CRM, all of that, you take it to a e-commerce domain, Zoho Commerce naturally comes in there. And so that's how we have expanded. And we are still expanding if you look at that, we're still expanding the scope of this operating system for business, as we call it.
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you so much. Shailesh, I'd pick a cue from Sridhar's answer and come to you for the next question. When Sridhar mentioned we own the plumbing, right? Why does Zoho do that? Like, for example, why does Zoho host its own data centers? What are the pros and cons of it?
Yeah, so one thing we had already decided when we started way back was we were in this for the long haul, and we knew that we wanted to be a operating system of business. That means whatever software a business would need to run their day-to-day businesses, whatever software an enterprise would need to run their day-to-day businesses, all this we wanted to provide in a more integrated, seamless way with affordable elegance. So this has always been the prime mantra on which we have been based. So it is very clear right from the beginning that we'll be having a lot of data centers, we'll be having a lot of network pops, and given that the world is getting more privacy oriented, you would have data centers in even smaller countries. So there were these 3-4 factors that was always weighing in our mind. So if you take something like public cloud, like say AWS or GCP or Azure, uh, up to certain scale, obviously they are it's a good thing to be on it. But beyond a certain scale, the cost starts rising very highly. So this is one thing, because they also need to be in business. So there's a when you go and subscribe to AWS or Azure, it's not only the machine that you're buying, you're also buying all the software around it. And the idea is once you start using the software, you're locked into an ecosystem. So these are some of the factors that play from the market perspective. So there were some factors from what we wanted to be, and there were some factors playing from the market perspective. So given these two, so one thing was clear is beyond a certain scale, it is good to be on your own DC. And if you're going to be in it for the long haul, it's good to know the plumbing well. So towards this, right from the beginning, we had taken this colo approach where we would rent the data center space, empty data center space, and fill it up with rack, stack, machines, and all that. And in our Chennai data center, where I am sitting from, or Chennai office where I'm sitting from, we also own the building in which the data center runs. So this has been the overall thought. But I would add that if you're a small startup with a skeletal staff and you need to come up with an MVP product, you want to hit the market soon, the public cloud is a good place to start. But be aware that beyond a certain scale, it is good to be on your own.
Got it, Shailesh. Shailesh, a follow-up question is, since many of us trust Zoho, is Zoho also looking at allowing or running public cloud, allowing other players to host their solution on your cloud? Because currently Zoho Cloud is only, your data centers are made only for Zoho applications. Is that something you have in your plans?
Yeah, so we are planning to kind of approach it step by step. So for now, we have software as a service where end consumers are consuming all the software that we give in a data center. But we also have our software is actually a platform. It can be integrated with other platforms, and it also has a marketplace. So we want to onboard, or like what the low code platform is, right? Developers will come and develop their own application or low code platform, or they could develop applications or plugins on top of our applications and sell it to the wider audience. So the idea is to enable the developers to come to Zoho and develop on top of already existing SaaS applications, or develop some in situ application on the low code platform, or develop some function as a service. So instead of looking at it as providing infrastructure as a service, we are looking at ourselves first to provide platform as a service to the developers, so that they develop on top of either the Zoho ecosystem or the Zoho low code no code platform. But we also have a full code platform that's called Catalyst. It's more like a function as a service. So we are looking at this whole thing as providing the PaaS first, and then once we do this well, maybe in the future we'll also look at infrastructure as a service. But now the focus is to onboard the developers on top of our either our SaaS applications or our low code applications or our full code Catalyst platform, so that they can add value to their customers.
Got it, Shailesh. Very, very clearly articulated. Thank you for that. Sridhar, when we decided to run this session, we posted in LinkedIn, in social channels, and a lot of questions centered around this one aspect. As a developer, what does Zoho look for in hiring? How do I get hired in Zoho is a very common question that came up in multiple, even in the LinkedIn channel now, there are a lot of such questions that are coming in. How does Zoho approach hiring, and especially hiring developers?
Yeah. So we take an unusual strategy for hiring. We have always done it. We don't particularly care for formal credentials like degrees or grades, any of that. And then when we even go to college, we conduct our own assessments, which in some technical opening that could involve a programming type of test. Sometimes it may not, also depending on the background of the person. And we have openings. We take people without much background prior, but then we train them. We have programs called incubation to take people in who don't have a particular background in the work we are doing, but they are willing to be trained. They may take some time, and they show some potential. How do we assess the potential? This is where we do a battery of whether it's interviews, some simple aptitude kind of tests. Those are reasonably simple, but at least we get a basic assessment of what somebody could do, and then also have the interviewers their own experiences they draw from, and references people who are already here. They may say that my friend is actually good at this. Please extend an opportunity here. So those are all the things that we do to identify candidates, and we have extended such opportunities to thousands of people in the last 10 15 years. If you look at our hiring, so many people came from unusual backgrounds that they would not have been hired straight up by the industry, and we are still doing that, and we are doing that across our various development centers, particularly in rural centers, including Tenkasi, where I am right now. And just yesterday, I visited our Kumbakonam area hub office, where we talked about how they can hire there, what kind of incubation is going on there, all of that. So that is how we are hiring. And more recently, we have also started hiring people for this type of implementations where a lot of our customers need help implementing Zoho. So we are also training people on that because it's part of our expanded support offerings, particularly as we scale to large enterprises. In fact, Zoho Creator now is used in very large applications. The last one, in fact, just something that went in production in the last few weeks, saw a textile spinning mill which now has an ERP, enterprise resource planning, that is now hosted on Zoho Creator, that has over 700 forms, and the code alone comes to over like 10.5 or 11 megabytes of code, source code alone in that is generated from this low code thing. In other words, underneath there is code, but what is generated is over 11 megabytes. There are about 700 forms and views, all of that in it. It's a massive, truly massive effort, but it was built in our rural center in about 3 or 4 months. It gives you the productivity of this, and these are the type of people who can get things done, were able to learn. And this team who built it didn't have any prior experience in much of programming or Zoho Creator, any of it. We trained them, they got on, and they built this ERP. So that's really the can-do spirit we are looking for.
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Another, let's say, the second area where a lot of questions came in was from a developer point of view. There is a lot of changes that are happening. There are a lot of new technologies that keep coming. How do you approach learning a new technology, or how do you approach learning in general? What is your suggestion for the developers out there?
Yeah, anything you learn, you start with very basics. And I'm learning Hindi, and I had to start from scratch, right? I didn't even know the alphabet originally. So I spent slowly learning the alphabet, reading. Now I'm reading at about second standard level of proficiency, I'll say, Hindi. And I'm going about it like a textbook way because I don't get to speak a lot. I know people advise you to watch movies and all of that. I don't have time. So I'm doing it through online, like reading this and that material on, and then slowly listening to some things that make sense. So you have to start with basics always. Never. For example, I met a student recently who said, "I'm going to do a bachelor's in data science and AI," and I told her, maybe I'd focus on basic data structures, basic algorithms, and how a relational database works, all that, rather than on something very advanced like data science and AI. from the get-go. Plus, if you have strong foundations, you can build all that, easily expand all that. But if you don't have the foundation, then you are only floating in abstraction and thin air above. So that's why I said build this very strong foundation. That is how I would learn anything, and it is as as simple as just getting started, spending an hour or two a day on it, at it with a single-minded focus on it, and then you will accumulate over months and years. You will see it accumulate. And I go back, say, 27, 28 years ago, when I got started in programming. I got a late start. I wasn't a programmer until I was 26-year-old. Okay, so 20, 25, 26-year-old. So, and I had to learn C++. And I just systematically learned and then started programming. And then I actually, even things like operating systems were new to me. I didn't know how a operating system was built, even though I knew some programming. Then I had to go figure out that, and more recently I had to figure out compilers. And again, I had to go systematically from the roots. What is parsing, and how does lexical analyzer work, and all those types of things. What is a compiler backend? So you systematically learn these concepts and spend time on it. So that is the really key to learning anything. And that applies to our Zoho Creator product as well. It's very easy to get started. You build a few forms, you build some few apps, then dig deeper and deeper and deeper. You will discover a lot of layers there that let you build very sophisticated apps along the way.
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Sridhar, one aspect that we would like you to highlight further is you clearly mentioned that at 26 you started developing or you became a programmer. What was the trigger, Sridhar? What made you get into this stream at that age? At 26, what was the turning point?
Yeah. Um, Basically, I realized when my first job was in wireless system design. But until then, my PhD never had any programming. I was more of a mathematical theory PhD. So I have to prove theorems basically. But once I got into a job building wireless system, I realized that pretty much you have to, everything is now done in software. Whether you call it civil engineering or mechanical engineering or aerospace or metallurgy or drug discovery, protein folding, biotech, whatever it is, a lot of it is now, almost all of it is built with models in a computer. On those models, you evolve, and basically simulation. You do a lot of simulation, modeling, all that, and then only you build the real system actually. You know, and this is true across the entire gamut of everything now. That's why computer aided design, computer aided manufacturing, all of that come in. And so that is what and once I realized it, that even this wireless field is full of software code you have to write to simulate those radio systems. I was literally simulating how radio waves propagate, how you power control your phone so that you send transmit appropriate amount of signal. All of those are simulated. I wasn't working in the lab with actual radios. I was working in a computer with actually software models. And once I realized it, then I had the motivation to learn C++ so that I could program that. So that was a lifelong fascination. So what more can you do with it? How do you go to the foundations of it? And so much so that now the Zoho Creator itself is as a result of that fascination, because it goes to the foundation of how software works, and I've been continuing that work further since.
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Thanks for that. Shailesh, the next couple of questions are from a Zoho point of view. What technology stack does Zoho use? How are Zoho tools built? What is the framework used? You're on mute, Shailesh.
So we are predominantly a Java shop. So slowly we are also trying to figure out other languages, and wherever necessary we are trying to bring in. But I would say 80-90% we are a Java shop. And on the front end, we use a variety of technologies, which is more a reflection of how the front end stack is also evolving from Struts, Spring to Ember, Angular, React. So I know like the front end is undergoing a lot more evolution. So whichever is I would say crucial at that point of time or relevant to us at that point of time, we do go and take a look at it. So that is one thing. But we also have our own internal frameworks on top of the Java stack. So it's not like we directly use the plain Pojo kind of a thing. On top of that, we have a small framework and we actually call it Mickey. So it's like the Mickey is an indication of its smallness in size as well as maybe easiness to use because it's internally developed. And so we do our both our on-premise applications as well as our cloud applications. All are built on the same software stack. So this is on the backend, and on client front ends we use a variety of technologies based on whichever is relevant to us as of that point of time. Apart from this, we also have the mobile development. So in mobile again, so we do look at some of things like React to see whether we can write once and develop code in multiple platforms. Similarly with Flutter too. But I would say that is more dependent on the kind of application that we are developing. So that's the tech stack that we typically use in Zoho.
Thank you, Shailesh. Thanks for sharing. One follow-up question on similar lines that we received was, Shailesh, has multiple products like Zoho One and Zoho Stack itself has 55 plus applications, and there is a managed engine ecosystem. How does the UX UI research happen in terms of the tools to use as well as what the user needs? How do you decide what will the front end look like? How, is there a research process that goes behind it?
Yeah. So because we are talking to other developers, I want to open up how we evolved to this stage. So if you go back in time and you look at our website, maybe you can go to archive.org and look at our website then and now. So like everything, design is also something that we evolved into. So we used to have a joke way back in 97, 98, 2000s and all. We call it DB to HTML. So we put the database schema and then we just convert HTML and show it to the user, right? But that time itself it was I would say that's a process of evolution. So and now slowly as we as more number of users started using it, and then the expectations on the software started rising, and then as you are capturing the complex workflows within an organization, obviously you can't do this simple DB to HTML, right? So from there we evolved into, and you can also see it actually what happens is initially when you start with a small team, one person will be wearing multiple hats, and then as the number of customers increase, as the product starts making revenue, your team starts growing, and then you will see that you start getting into specialization, right? So the most important thing I would say now is, if you are a small team, the most important thing is design. Okay, so backend is not what the customer sees. So nowadays it's more common sense. Anybody you go to nowadays, because of the kind of apps they use, be it WhatsApp, or the kind of phone they use, be it Android or iPhone, there is an expectation that the user interface and the user interaction should be good. So nowadays it's very commonsensical that UI UX plays a very major part in any application that we develop. So there should be a single focus on it. But if we were to trace our own evolution over the last 20 years, we started, I would say, at one end of the spectrum. I would say rock bottom from a UI UX perspective. But the good thing is when you start from rock bottom, there's only one way, and that is to go up. So towards the last 20 years, we also evolved our design sense. And now actually, if you see, now if you were to look at how we go about designing this, there would be a team that would do the server side API. And then there would be a separate product management team which would like to capture the UI UX flows separately, understand how the customer uses, maybe go and talk to some beta customers, give them the screenshots, see what the reaction is, do some user testing, and then based on that, then give it to the front end developers who develop it and tie it into the APIs that have been provided, right? So the point here is we also evolved with respect to UI and UX, but if there are developers out there who are talking about what is very important, design, especially front end design, is very important. In my introduction, I talked about 3Ds that I focus on: data, data center, and database. If I had, as they say, right, if wishes were horses, I would actually add a fourth D to it. That would be design, right? But I stay away from things that I don't get easily. That's why I didn't add it. But otherwise, we also have evolved over time, and it's very important to focus on the front end design.
Thank you,
Hope I have
Shailesh. So
answered your question, Bharat.
very clearly, Shailesh. Earlier, in one of the previous answers, you mentioned you are here for the long run, and now you have explained the journey over the long run. So both actually are connecting well. Thank you so much for that. One other question that we had a lot of people asking from the questions was, Shailesh, on the database part. Given that we have Zoho has so many users, so many products, how do you manage the database, because you're running your own data center, 99.99% uptime and all that? What challenges you face, and how do you ensure that is handled?
Okay, so how much time do we have now? So do you have the full day?
Can you
Okay,
do it for
so
dummies?
no, you can't assume that on behalf of the audience, right? So yeah, so see, basically at the end of the day, any 99.99, generally what you do is you'll have to have, you should not have any single piece of failure, I mean single point of failure, and then you'll typically have multiple copies. So these are all some of the things that are very common knowledge now. So if you were to go back, say some 10 years back, when the world itself was evolving from a on-premise software to an on-cloud software, these are all things that are evolving. Okay, so that time it is quite possible that people weren't aware. But nowadays, if you look at any standard hypercloud, or if you were to look at how to design a SaaS application, so most of them would talk about sharding, not having a single point of failure, having multiple copies, storage is cheap, and these are all some of the things on which it is based. So when somebody is saying they're running on 99.9, one thing you have to realize is there are two approaches of doing it. Either you get one high-end machine with a lot of RAM, stack, and all that, and have some a DR process in place, and then pay big bucks to the vendor who's supplying it to you. That is one way of doing it. And then there is another way. The other way is you take commodity servers, you shard the data, you distribute over multiple machines, and you have copies of the machines behind them. So that's the other approach. So this is actually, if you go and look up on the web, it's called cattle versus pet approach. In the cattle approach, if you go to a dairy, you have multiple cows. It's not like you're naming cows or goats or sheep or whatever, right? You're not naming each of them. You know that each one is almost similar, and even if one were to go, with due apologies to the cow, even if one were to go, it doesn't mean something bad is going to happen. That's called the cattle approach. The pet approach is what used to be way back in 2010 and 11, where you will have a big fat server, and then you'll have a lot of be it on the cloud or be it on premise. Okay, and you will have a lot of sysadmins taking care of it, and you'll have some high-end architecture, hardware architecture, where it will swap easily and all that. So this cattle versus pet approach, obviously in the SaaS world, people prefer the cattle approach. That is for the first thing. And second thing is, with respect to horizontal scalability, a lot of you would have read on the web itself, right? You can go and even check out some sites like scalability.org, or you can even read from the InfoQ website, or follow the Hacker News. You will generally see that a lot of them recommend horizontal scalability with sharding, with shared nothing data, and you have multiple copies of the data, so that even if one machine were to go down, you bring up the other machine, use some virtual IP magic, and ensure that the customer is not affected. So this is how the database operations are typically done.
Got it, Shailesh. Thank you for explaining that in detail. Hyther, the next question is on the low code side. There are mentions of ERP being built on low code and other aspects. So can you give us an idea on when to take a pre-built approach versus when to take a low code approach? How would you suggest we deciding which approach to take?
Yeah, I think, see, the pre-built applications works very nice as long as your requirement is very clear and your customization needs, you don't have much of customization needs or extension needs, or, typically a ERP would have a complex, business processes and workflows, and the processes would bound to change, over time. The change management would be really huge, right? So for these kind of needs, the pre-built applications would be really rigid to accommodate this kind of flexible requirements. So that's when you go for a platform like low-code platform, where you build a custom ERP. The spinning min example which Sridhar said, or we have customers like, Olive ERP customers, from procuring the olive to bottling into the olive oil into the bottle. The complete process is automated using ERP. For them, they could introduce another 3 steps or 3 automation processes changes in probably next 6 months or a year, and the software has to really accommodate those changes. So you have very custom needs, and your software should be really flexible to accommodate that business. It should be other way around. It's not like you fit your process based on the software you procured. Rather, you fit the software based on the business problem you have in place, right? And that's when Creator kind of a low-code platform, the ERP, which a lot of customers are building, actually come up with that kind of problems, and where low-code is really, a boon for this kind of a needs. Another problem is, especially ERP, you cannot run in silo. You have to really go and integrate with another legacy application and other cloud applications, right? And when you buy a pre-built application, let's say you want to integrate with another third-party application, you are at the mercy of the pre-built application vendor to provide that integration for you. While in a custom world or in the low-code world, take Creator comes with pre-built integration with 550 applications. We have integration Creator. So once you build an application Creator, immediately you get access to 550 applications out there in the market, legacy and cloud applications, where you can push and pull information. So that's how the real world happens. You have to the saying goes like $1 you spend on software, you end up spending $5 on integrations, right? So when you procure a pre-built applications, you don't have this kind of flexibility. While in low-code platform, majority of low-code platform supports this kind of pre-built integrations, and you can create extensions, widgets, and application development lifecycle, what they call it as in a complex environment where multiple developers are building custom applications, where you cannot really roll out a change immediately into a production. So you have a testing environment, staging, and then you roll out, right? While in a pre-built application, you do any changes, it's immediately affecting the production environment. While in a platform environment, a low-code environment, you have a very controlled way of rolling out your updates, right? You don't want to screw up your already running ERP with some changes, right? So this application development lifecycle with the versioning, with the staging, all this is part of the whole low-code platform offering. And that's why when you want to build, days are gone where low-code is being used by long tail situated small application. But now, real core enterprise IT are looking at low code as their center stage application to build complex needs, and given the fact that they want this kind of very flexible platform to accommodate their requirements. So that's why you could see like more and more ERP are built on low code platforms.
Got it. Thank you, Hyther. Hyther, again, as a part of the questions, we got a quite a few feature requests, so that we have channeled, we have passed it to the product team. But specifically at a strategic level, how do you decide the roadmap for a platform product? Because it's not a product as such. So how do you decide on what capabilities to add to the platform? And one keyword that kept coming in the questions is RPA. Do you see RPA as a natural extension to Creator?
Sure. I think any product, right, even low-code platform is a product consumed by a customer. You're going to sell it to a customer. So obviously, the push has to come from the customer, the requirements. So there's a product management 3 buckets, right? One is from the customers, from the support, what they reach out as, I need this kind of, let's say I introduce a customer portal, immediately customer would ask like, my customer portal has to be customized. Every piece of information has to be customized. I want to put a lot of content in a custom portal. I want to have sites kind of environment. So once we launched custom portal, we said like, okay, we have to integrate those sites into the customer portal feature based on the customer needs. So that's one bucket, based on customer needs. The second bucket is based on the market where it is heading, right? Now enterprise IT is adopting low code, so the bar is raised, right? So when the enterprise IT is using it, they would want more control and governance. The control and governance may not be a requirement 5 years back. But now once you get into the enterprise IT, they want to know exactly what's happening inside the application being developed, right? Exact permissions, who is using it, what kind of usage, right? So they want to have complete control and permission control on every aspect, right? And they don't want to have a shadow IT. So all these features demand comes from the market pull, right, into the product, how the product is being adopted in the market. So that's a marketing demand based. The third bucket, or I would call it market or / competitors, that's the second bucket. Third bucket is how we want to take our roadmap based on our vision, right? So based on our intuition, based on our knowledge, based on our way of running things in last 25 years, running as a software company, right? So our vision was, all along was very simple. We want to make what seems to be really easy should be really trivial. What should be difficult for a customer to do it in another platform should be really easy for us, and what should be complicated, impossible things should be possible in our platform, right? And we want to empower our non-programmers, right? So which means that we need to really provide lot of tools which a non-programmer should be able to do a heavy lifting in our platform. So that is our inline to our vision. That is the vision bucket. So all put together is how we really prioritize things for any upcoming releases. So that's a challenge we undergo in product management when we really decide what we have to take as part of our Zoho Creator platform. So coming to the second part of the question on the RPA, which is picking up really well in the last few years, the robotic process automation, where we want to automate a repeated human task, right? Typical use case would be a legacy application where someone would be sitting noting down some information from a legacy application in a piece of paper or in a computer, and then feeding that information into another system, a cloud system, a modern system, and trying to or send an email or whatnot. So there could be some 3-4 steps involving human, involving machines, right? So all this can be replaced. The humans can be replaced here completely, because the legacy application, they don't give an interface or way to really push and pull information, right? So robotic process automation agent sits inside the system where the desktop, predominantly it's a Windows based applications or it's a Mac based application, then it can automate and you can record things automated without even a human intervention. And we have done this RPA, and we have recently, a couple of months back, we had a analyst day in US where hundreds of analysts came to our US analyst day, and we showcased them on the RPA offering, and they got thrilled. And in fact, we have been featured in the Gartner as a visionary in the visionary quadrant. And one of the reason is like we have very robust RPA, and we already opened up to our partners, and you can expect this RPA to be a GA, the general availability, early next year. And we are really bullish about it, and we would be automating a lot of the legacy application also inside our Zoho ecosystem. This will not be attached just for Zoho Creator, but it will be a Zoho RPA, and it can be consumed into other Zoho business application, like let's say CRM or desk or our finance application. It will be part of those applications as well.
Got it. Thank you, Hyther. Thanks for that. Sridhar, the next set of questions are for you. One is from a developer learning point of view. What are your thoughts on some of the latest technology tools or languages available in the market, especially Python and React? These are two things that a lot of people wanted your thoughts on.
No, I think he's having some network problem, or is it a mute problem? Just we just tell him that. And
Sridhar, are you able to hear us?
He's on mute. Yeah, fine.
Repeat the question. I had repeat the question, please.
Your thoughts on what are some of the latest languages? Am I audible now, Sridhar?
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Python and React and certain other tools. Your thoughts on Python.
Yeah. So Python is of course heavily used in data science applications now. It used to be used in other front end, all of that, but whether languages like Go, others have taken more statically compiled languages. JavaScript also has taken over some of the role of Python in the web server now, but Python still rules in the data science and AI type of applications, and that's one. And other upcoming, I'm a generally believer that statically typed languages will rule, and we can do a lot with TypeScript. The emergence of TypeScript in the JavaScript landscape is a good example of the trend, and the emergence of Go as well as Rust, which are challenging things like Ruby or JavaScript in the server. All of that tell you which direction, which way the winds are blowing. So it means statically typed languages with the full compiler, and the compiler detecting a lot of classes of bugs. Rust is very much in that category, though Rust itself is a very complex statically typed language, but it's still the right direction, in my opinion. So I see that is how I see the way programming world is going. We ourselves are betting a lot on static typing and everything, and also the emergence of WebAssembly in the browser that also gives room to more compiled languages that compile into WebAssembly. Already C, C++, Rust, Go, a lot of them are supported. I think the trend will be for even more languages to support WebAssembly as a natively compiled or compiled output. So that's how I see the uh, uh, development world going. And I also believe that a lot more productivity is possible in software development. And we are already seeing that, with a lot of the cloud APIs, whether it's no code, low code, all of that has unleashed massive productivity. But even more is possible. In fact, one joke, and this is actually Sam Altman of Y Combinator said this recently, that the first category of people programmers will automate will be themselves. There's a kind of a recursion joke there, right? So you automate, but the first thing you automate is yourself out. so, so there is I think that is coming, where there's a lot of automation happening, but automation is in the development of software itself. So that's where I see things heading. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Sridhar. Sridhar, follow-up question there again is, how do you see the IT market going from now on because of the situations, the things happening around the world? What are your thoughts on how the IT market will progress, and how will it impact the developer community specifically?
No. So if you look at the, I'll categorize across different markets. We look at US, that traditionally has been the where all the software companies came from primarily, right? And software deployment, software adoption has been the most concentrated there. In fact, for a lot of newer companies, US is the dominant market for software too, and then followed by Europe, and then followed by Japan and other countries. That is how the software market has been traditionally. I'm talking about business software, IT markets. I'm not talking about consumer apps like WhatsApp or WeChat, Arata, any of that. I'm talking about the business software landscape. There is a wave of adoption happening in India, in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, and Africa, and Latin America, all of this. That is now kind of changing the landscape. In the next 10, 15 years, a lot of the growth is going to come from these markets. That's one. And in terms of the IT spending. The second, I mentioned the automation. So I actually, and the creator itself, gives you an example that we could do an ERP for a spinning mill, textile spinning mill with over 700 forms, with 2 or 3 months effort by very inexperienced people, led by one experienced person. That's a really indicator of how much productivity is possible. And we have numerous examples. In fact, we have implemented a full course catalog and credit tracking system for one of the major universities in India as well, entirely in Creator. And so all of these tell you how much productivity is possible. And I believe this kind of productivity is coming to the broader world of IT across the board. So what you see in a glimpse of in a platform like Creator, you are going to get in the general programming landscape. That's what I believe. And our own products, from analytics to data preparation, data cleansing, how clean the data is very critical to how productive you are, because then you don't have to chase down those obscure corner edge cases if you clean up the data ahead of time. All that will be incorporated. For example, our data preparation will get incorporated into Creator, so when data is coming in, you ensure that the data is correct in a sense, or not glitchy and not as silly bugs like spelling mistakes and all of that. So those are all areas in which you can have, if you make it upfront clean data, you can be much more productive. So these trends are coming, which means that what does it mean for the jobs landscape? in this combined with demographic pressure in the West, you simply cannot find the people in US or Europe, primarily demographic, which is a major cause. So it means that's why a lot of those jobs are coming to India today, not for cost saving so much as because simply being not able to find people anywhere. It's true for European companies, it's true for Japanese companies, it's true for, of course, has always been true for US companies, but even more true today. So those are the trends in India from a Indian standpoint. So I'm fairly optimistic about India, but we have to be mindful of these productivity, high productivity technologies, which means fewer people can do the job too. So meanwhile, as jobs are coming here because of demographic pressure, we also must watch for what is happening with the productivity tools. So these are the two forces that are operating right now.
Thank you, Sridhar. Thanks for that. Hyther, next question is more from a learning point of view. Outside creator, have you failed? Have you shelved any of your applications? Have you closed down any of your products? What is your learning from there, from that failure?
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a 24-year journey at Zoho. I'm sure, in this 24 years, I'm sure not even a single person in this entire world could have faced only success, right? Including Sridhar Vembu. So we have our fair share of failures, right? In terms of ending a product kind of thing. So one of the product which is very close to my heart was early 2000. We started a product called JMX Studio, which is it's a agent for IT management. So it's a very standard as part of a JSR. Those days, Java specifications called as JSR, where Zoho also, those days, Zoho was called as name called AdvinNet. So we represented, in fact, I represented AdvinNet as part of the JSR, as part of the management extension standards, which is described by Java. And so we built a product on top of that on that standard, and we thought like it will take up very well, and we had a very good start. But apparently, the market killed it. Sun Microsystems, which eventually bought by Oracle, and Sun is no more today. But the Sun was the one who invented Java and was running the JSRs. So they made that implementation open source, free of cost, and we don't have an option. We have to shut it down. So which is beyond product failure. It is like there will be all a market push also. So we have shut down other products. Like we had a product called Zoho Challenge, which is a assessment tool kind of thing. So we have fair number of applications which we have shut down because there's no business viability for it, or there's no market need for it, right? And so I think it was at a very young age it would be an emotional thing, but long term, right, it doesn't matter. You keep your heads down and keep doing, and then we see like that experience would really helpful for us to really, and that experience was very handy for me to into the Zoho Creator world, when we are building a Zoho Creator applications. So yeah, of course, I have my own fair share of failures as well.
How did Zoho react to those failures, Hyther? I hope I'm not putting you in a spot, but how was it taken? How did the team approach it when the failure, when the product?
So in fact, I joked this to my team members who were compressed, right? In fact, after that failure, the subsequent the performance appraisal for that year, I got one of the best appraisal. Right? So it is not, you're not being judged by the failure, but you're being judged by the effort what you put. Have you put the fullest into what are you doing? Right? That's a part of Zoho culture. We don't judge based on the results, but more on the journey, and that's why we are keep going. And we know that some of the best people are working on product which doesn't yield even a single dollar, right? Including take Shailesh. He's heading the Zoho Labs, but that may not be directly yielding revenue, but that is the backbone of our all the AI, whatever interesting thing we are doing in the products is being served from Zoho Labs. But he keeps our heads down and works on the some of the core engineering R&D work. And as a co-founder, he's very passionate about it, right? So that may not yield the real output of revenues out of those directly, but indirectly it is helping the products, right? So that's a Zoho culture. We want people to really put effort and look forward for a very long term play, and that's where we are today as a Zoho as a company.
Got it. Thank you, Hyther. Shailesh, next question is again related to developers, but not directly on technology side. This is about work from home. How do you see it impacting the developer community? Because there are a couple of questions asking. Many companies have said customer facing in office and developers can be at home. Would you agree with that approach? How is Zoho approaching this work from home, specifically for a developer ecosystem?
Yeah, so this is the raging topic nowadays, and you can see it in newspapers every now and then. Actually, I would want to flip the question. Okay, so for a developer, so let the developer, she or he, herself or himself, ask the question to them. When is it they had the maximum knowledge, or when did they gain the maximum? For example, some of them would have studied in school, college, or somebody might not have gone through college, or they might have done a project together, or they might have done in their, assume they're in a college, they would have done some project together in their 8th semester, or they would have studied for an exam together, whatever be it, right? So the question to be asked from a developer perspective is, when did they learn the maximum? Okay, so first of all, if you look at it, you learn the maximum when you are in a group of like-minded people. That physical connect is required. And similarly, if you look at it, if you were to remember some profs, like if you have been lucky enough to have a prof or professor or a teacher who has inspired you, actually, if you were to go back in time and ask yourself who is the professor or teacher who has inspired you, it would be somebody with whom you were relating on a day-to-day basis in the physical world, right? So these are all examples that you need to ask yourself first, right? So if you were to answer these two questions, you will see that a lot of times there is a lot of knowledge in the air, that physical environment is very important for you to imbibe, right? But so for the developers who are starting their career, I think working in a group, working with a mentor in a physical way is very essential for themselves to pick up things. Forget what the company wants, forget what the industry wants, that is all secondary. As an individual, if you want to pick up the maximum knowledge, especially between your young ages, see 22 to 28, 22 to 29, this is a very good time to pick up things. Or if you were to be a kind of person who has joined Zoho schools, then it will be 18 or 17, 17 to 29. So these are all time periods where you can pick up the maximum. So that time, having maximum exposure with your mentor, maximum exposure with the people around you is the best way to learn. And then once you do this, after that point, and once you are able to contribute individually, where you know what is happening in the industry, where you know you have a standing of your own, then you can decide, right? But then you have to remember one thing, like what Sridhar was mentioning, there was this hacker news joke, right? What Waltman had said. It's like a recursive thing. So somebody had spent time with you for you to come up to this stage, where somebody had mentored you in a very physical environment, telling you what to do and all that. So obviously, there are some freshers out there to whom you need to do this, right? So look at it that way. Then based on that, you decide. So to kind of paraphrase the question, it's a very nuanced answer. If you are starting your career, it is a good thing to work in a group and learn the tricks of programming or the trade or documentation or customer support, whatever be it. Once you reach an experience level, this is something you can decide for yourself, whether you're best working as an individual contributor or you're best working in a group setup. Based on that, you decide. Apart from this, obviously, there'll be scenarios where 20% of the time you want to work from home, 30% of the time you want to work from home. So nobody's debating those. So we are looking at cases which are the extreme, like 80% from home, 20% in the office. That kind of extreme cases is what we are debating. For convenience sake, if you have to work from home for a couple of weeks or days or something, that's anyway given now. In one sense, COVID helped us to make this norm, and people can utilize it to be more productive.
Got it. Thank you, Shreya. That was really a nuanced answer. We are at, well, what we'll do is we'll just take one question more to each panelist. So to the audience, thank you so much for joining. We will finish in another 5 minutes max. Just a couple of points. There are a lot of questions around job opportunities at Zoho. We would sincerely request you. Thank you for considering Zoho. It's a pleasure that we have so many of you looking to join Zoho. Please look at zoho.com/careers. All our job opportunities are listed there. feel free to reach out to us, apply there, and our HR team will definitely get in touch with you. We are also seeing some specific comments in terms of, can this feature be introduced in Creator? Can this capability come in Zoho? We will definitely pass this to the team and ensure it is acted upon. And couple of partners, thank you so much, Deepa, Fabrance. We are seeing your comments there. Interest in learning Zoho Labs, etc. We'll definitely ensure we act on every single comment that came here. Careers part around, we would sincerely request you to go to zoho.com/careers and apply. And we look forward to having you here in the process. Thank you so much. We'll just come to one final question to each of the panelists, starting with Hyther. Hyther, we are hearing multiple developer products of Zoho, right? Like we spoke about Creator, we mentioned Catalyst. So, what is the overall developer vision of Zoho? How much is Zoho willing to invest? How much is Zoho willing to go deep in the developer ecosystem?
Yeah, I think I can put it in two buckets. The one is outside the Zoho ecosystem. So we have developers who want to build solutions using our low-code platform, which is the Zoho Creator, right? Where we have the Zoho Creator vision, where we want to, from non-sophisticated, non-programmer to a power developers, the spreadsheet kind of power developers, to a professional developer. So they should be able to use the Zoho Creator platform, the no code, low code, and pro code. All this unified as one platform would be the Zoho Creator platform, right? Where they can get started and provide solutions using a Zoho Creator, like the ERP examples we gave. The second piece is the so in that Zoho, the first piece itself, we have the pro code, so which the catalyst, right, the function as a service, would also be part of the whole Zoho Creator platform, because as Sridhar said, 95% of the time you can manage with the no code, low code. But at times, right, you hit the roadblock where you need to write a lot of code or a Java function or JavaScript in order to have that last mile coverage. We provide that pro code tool, and that's been powered by the Catalyst, which is a function service that will be offered under the Zoho Creator umbrella, right? That's one piece. The second piece, the developer ecosystem, is for the Zoho ecosystem. So developers for the business application under the Zoho umbrella, right? Let's say someone has to write a custom function to extend some of the capability in Zoho CRM. They should have a development environment. So we will also be investing what you call it as Xcode for Zoho. So where Xcode is a tool for anything you build on in a Java, in Apple ecosystem, right? You want to write a Swift code, use Xcode, right? Similarly, any business application you want to extend in Zoho, like CRM or desk or any finance applications, you use this environment where you can write the function, and unified, you can see all the functions and you can deploy it. You can have complete control and governance, and the application development lifecycle also you can have it as part of this Xcode for Zoho, the second bucket, what I said. So this also will be part of the whole developer vision, what we call it as the developer ecosystem for our Zoho applications. So see, these are two broader buckets, and we have a separate roadmap and separate team working on both this vision, and where we will be empowering developers to actually do more using our products.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Shailesh, the final question to you is, outside the Zoho ecosystem, actually. So there are a lot of developers, people with 0 to 5 years sort of experience. What would be your advice to people starting their career in this space, in the technology space? Is there a couple of suggestions, advice that you would give to us who are starting our careers now?
Yeah, so see, first I would generally say, whenever freshers come and approach me also, I would first say there's developers versus engineers, right? See, one is to look at yourself as developer. So just to clarify those two terms, a developer would say my work is done after the code is done. An engineer is a person who will try to solve the customer's problem. At the end of the day, we have to realize that the pay, the building, the infrastructure, the lunch, everything is coming because some customer is paying for it. So developer versus engineer, it's always good to think as an engineer, where developing code is one way of satisfying the customer needs. But apart from that, there's a whole lot of things you need to do to satisfy the customer needs. So you need to go the full hog. So don't look at yourself only as an engineer, as a developer. Also look at yourself as an engineer. So this is the first point. And the second thing is, any technology that you want to learn, The most important thing is persistent effort. So when you take up some technology and open up and start learning, the good thing is, as I had mentioned in one of my previous conversations, you are starting from the rock bottom. And when you start at the rock bottom, the best thing is there's only way, and that one way is upwards. So every day you keep doing it, every 2 hours you keep doing it. Then suddenly, when you look back after 3 months, you would have had a pile of code or artifacts or documentation written or support questions answered, which will give you the confidence that you can actually solve the problem. And the third thing is, once you gain experience after a couple of 3 4 years, obviously we are in an industry where technology is changing a lot. So typically my approach in such scenarios is to take a very T based approach. When I use the word T, like horizontally, you need to understand what are all the various technologies, why are they different. Like you take something like front end technology. So you have React, I mean, you have Angular, Ember, then you have React, then you have Vue, then you have Svelte, and then you have Flutter. Like this, you have some 7 8 things. There is a reason why all of them came. One way of saying it is, oh, all this has come, there is so much confusion, what is the big deal? But the other way of looking at it is, all of them are coming and answering one particular need. So what are the attributes on which these technologies differ with each other? Now am I able to understand those attributes? So that I would call the horizontal part of the T, right? And then once you kind of get a feel of what is there in the market, it's like going to a buffet, right? You have so many things to eat. It's not like you go to the first thing and eat only that. So you kind of go and taste the various things, understand the lay of the buffet or the lay of the land, and then you decide on which technology you want to go in, which will solve the specific customer's need, and you go deep into it. So you have um, a wide knowledge across the horizontal spectrum, and then you go deep into something. This, if you keep on doing it, you will be able to pick up technology sooner. So this, I would say, will be the three things, my top three things I would tell developers.
Shailesh, as beautiful and as articulate as always, Shailesh, I would love to do a monthly webinar session with you and pricking your brains further. It was a pleasure. Team, before coming to Sridhar, one quick message is, all these initiatives are happening as a part of our celebration of developers. So September 13th, the 256th day of the year, is considered the International Developer Day, Programmer Day. So as a part of which we had a lot of initiatives, we are having a lot of initiatives, and this session is one of that. So we would request you to try Creator, try developer tools of Zoho. And if you're an organization that wants to start free, go to zoho.to/256. There is a program that we are running where we are giving free user license to 256 organizations. So if you want to be a part of it, try Zoho Creator. 1 year worth free license for 5 users in your organization. You can try that as well. I'll repeat the URL: zoho.to/256. You can put your request there, and we will evaluate your entry, and we will provide you 1 year of free access as well. So we would be happy to support you. Final question, Sridhar, coming to you is, we know you are very passionate about India. So what is your message to us as individuals / as developers towards contributing towards our country?
First, as an individual, we have to be passionate about what we do, try to be the best at what we do, whatever it is, our work. That spans beyond Zoho, spans beyond software development. It could be teaching, and it could be nursing, it could be medicine, it could be police, whatever it is. If we try to give our best, excel, then our nation becomes a developed nation. That's really, because it starts with the individual. It starts with each of us, what we are doing in our day-to-day job, and how much passion, commitment, dedication, all that we bring to this. And I always recall our President Abdul Kalam, these words on these. Right, he inspired so many people to excel, to go do their best, very best, and that is enduring source of inspiration for engineers everywhere, particularly, but also everyone, all of our citizens. That's one. And as a group team, and then we go to larger organizations, all of it. It also comes from lack of selfishness. Because ultimately, when you are able to help your team, is when you forget your own, just the personal interest, but you want to genuinely help somebody else. could be your team member, and it could be your broader, other teams around you are working. It's your customer. You have that. If we adopt that, and for that we have to master our ego. It goes back to our own spiritual foundations. But if we are able to do that, to be selfless in our dealings, then again that is causes that automatically our excellence in our personal craft and our selflessness in how we deal with others together. That's what ultimately brings to a very successful and happy nation. That is how I see this, and it's trying to practice these is daily. Do excellent work in your personal capacity and be selfless in your dealing with others. That's how I'll summarize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sridhar. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Hyther,
Thank you.
Shailesh, and Steve again for joining here.
And
Thanks
I want
everyone
to
for
thank
joining.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Yeah.